on and being willing to experiment with us a little bit. We wanted to introduce the opportunity for people to be mentored basically live time by people who are a little further ahead on their business journeys. And that's why we have Indulge Catering hopping on behind. They're doing incredible work. And we're going to get a chance to live time mentor, live time brainstorm the next moves in their business, which is going to be a blast. But today we're starting with Tom, just getting a bit more of your story. Tom is the founder of Rise Franchising and a beautiful human who somehow finds himself ahead of the curve all the time. I mean, every major market disruption that I've known about, Tom has been ahead of in some way. And even with this coronavirus, he's going to get into more of what he's been doing there. But before all this hit, Tom, you had already switched most of your business, or a big chunk of your business, over to digital and curbside, you know, months before people actually even had to do that. So, Tom, why don't you just share a bit more of your journey with us here and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me bring this here for a second. So, growing up in high school, I didn't do very well. I'm dyslexic and ADHD and didn't really excel at anything except football. And after high school, I joined the Army. I was an airborne ranger in the Army. And then I went on this culinary path because when I got out, I took a test, aptitude test for colors your parachute, and it said be a chef. So I went to the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and then I traveled around the world around America for the next 12 years. DC, Austin, Dallas, LA, Seattle, New York, and kind of honed my skills during that time, all with the mission to do catering. Was what I wanted to do at the beginning, because I liked throwing parties. I threw a lot of parties in high school. And so during that journey, I learned these skills and I got into my business because I loved food and I loved entertaining. And that was what pulled me in. And I was a little bit hesitant about embracing the business side of it. And 2 years into my catering company, I was making a decision because it was really beating me down, trying to learn how to run a business. It was really hard. I just wanted to cook. That's all I wanted to do. That was a really big component of this. So I started my company, Discern Catering Company, in 2000. And at that point, I needed to learn so much. I was reading, and what I did was just embrace kind of technology from the get-go. And I kind of have a timeline here for it that I'll read, but I bought my first computer in 2000 when I started my company. We built a website for Disruptor Catering in 2000, and we were the first catering company in the area with a website. And I remember at that point, another big caterer in the area told somebody else that, you know, why is he doing all this technology stuff? That's not what the business is about. He needs to not rely on technology and all. I'm like, oh, well, whatever, and kept moving in this direction. Back in the day, I was doing my invoicing in Word document. I didn't even have QuickBooks at this point. I was just writing out invoices, and it was really confusing. And then in 2001, I got QuickBooks. That changed my world at that point. And then I got my first smartphone in 2007. And that helped with, you know, when you're doing deliveries, back in the old days, you did deliveries by doing MapQuest and reading the directions and getting lost. So that kind of changed the delivery aspect of it. And then I started Only Burger in 2009. And in 2009, my partner at the point said, hey, Twitter had just come out. And he said, hey, why don't we use Twitter to tell people where we're going to be? So we embraced Twitter early on. And that really was why really helped us get the word out, let people know where we're going to park the truck. We also got into Facebook with our business at that point, where very few people were involved. And the Food Channel did this food truck competition back in, I think, 2010, 2011, to where everybody in the markets would vote on their favorite food truck every day. And they did this challenge for over a month. And there was hundreds and hundreds of food trucks involved. And we were the #1 voted one at the end of it. Although we didn't win the competition, we were #1. But that showed me the power of social media. That was that first point where, wow, this is really powerful to get the word out for it.
Tom, I'm curious, as you're sharing this, what was the feedback from people? Because you're so early on this. Did you have a lot of naysayers or a lot of people saying, man, you're wasting your time? Or, did we have a lot of that?
Yeah, I actually was ridiculed a little bit about it. I was told I wasn't looking at the right thing. It's about the food. And, I just kept going. Every time I did something, it proved that it worked to me. And then everybody else was following behind. So once you have a few wins, that you're a little bit ahead of the curve. Now, implementing some of these things, some of the things I talk about today, set you back a little bit for a minute, but then you go ahead. So you take a step back as you're implementing, and then you get 5 steps ahead of the competition once you get it going. So yeah, there was a little bit of ridicule at that point.
Sure.
Okay. Then as a caterer, and during catering in 2011, we got a program that was developed for catering called Caterees, and it changed my life. Because where you were doing, an invoicing, and you were writing up menus, and you were doing your equipment that you needed, it put it all in one place, and we were able and held the information for the events we had done before. So, I used to have this pile of files to do estimates for people, and it was just brutal. And once I got Caterees, I was able to do estimates in 5 minutes with the whole program. It was awesome. It changed my life at that point, to where I was spending so much time doing that, I was able to kind of pivot on what I was spending my time doing. After that time, we opened Rise. And since what I learned with Only Burger with Facebook, I said, I am going to be the king of Facebook in a business, in a food restaurant. Sure. So we started it. We did a Facebook account. And I remember the day we launched the Facebook account, I didn't even have a store open. We were months away, but I had 100 followers like in 30 minutes to it. And I'm like, all right, this is a good sign. And then I really went, and when I was developing it, because we did tastings all around town, I was putting stuff out on social media like, hey, what oil do you think I should use? Should I use, lard? Should I use palm oil? Should I use vegetable oil? And people really gave a lot of feedback back then. This is kind of the magic age of Facebook. And then when we would do each day, we would take a picture of the menu board and put it out, because we changed stuff on the daily. And this really built a big following. And I want to say back in that time, we went over 10,000 followers relatively fast.
Which is huge. People just feel like they're a part of your process, which I think that's the real magic of what you're talking about.
Yeah, at that point, it was, everything you posted, everybody saw. It wasn't like there was an algorithm where certain people saw, certain people didn't. It was before Facebook was doing ads, and it was before they were trying to really make you pay to get that word out. So it was this golden age that was really instrumental in the growth of Rise at that time. Sorry, I'm looking at my thing here. Then one of the things we did is we were using Square as our POS. It's kind of the first people in town who was using iPads as their POS system. Sure. And that worked okay, but we had all these tickets. We were doing like 500 orders a day. So we were like always moving tickets on the rail and down, and I wanted to go ticketless. And so at that point, we did some research, and we got this POS system called Rebel, which we were able to be totally ticket free and used iPads throughout the system. And what happened right off the bat, it made us so much faster that we were doing $500 more in business every Saturday, 500 more on Sunday, and then about 500 to 800 during the week more.
Makes it huge.
We became huge, and that happened for an entire year until we looped back. And that totally kind of changed our world. And then we started to franchise. When we started to franchise, I needed to communicate with these different franchisees in one place instead of each one individually. So we created a dashboard, basically, on our website. This dashboard kind of had a blog component to it, and then it had links to videos, links to our marketing, links to operation manual. But that blog we were able to put some information in there that everybody saw. And that really helped that operation work a lot more at that time. And then we started doing Facebook ads once that started happening, and we were using that to get word out more and kind of pinpoint people that we were trying to advertising to. That's in 2017. Then we went with kiosks in the store. So self-ordering kiosks we put in the store where we were taking orders with the cashier, but we also had the ability, if you don't want to talk to me, to go punch in an order. And I think that was right at the beginning of that kiosk starting to come into play in restaurants. I think we were pretty far ahead of that. And then we started Instagram, which I personally haven't been that involved with, but our marketing company is. And then we started an online ordering platform in 2018, and we did that on our website. So on our website, you can go order online, then you pick the store you want to order from, you order, it ties in with our POS system.
So you actually built that piece custom at that time, or you were using another?
Well, it's a custom page, and the things around it are built custom through our marketing company, but then it's embedded, then there's an embedded link to our POS system inside of it.
But I was saying, you weren't using like an Uber Eats or a Square order or whatever. It was directly tied into your POS.
Yes, directly tied into our POS. So they,
so you're ahead of
component that works that way. And most POSs have a component that works like that at this point. That's why a lot of the companies during this virus that needed to put online ordering were able to do it relatively fast. That component of it by dropping it. The more complicated part is on the back end in the house, and how you produce that product to give to somebody when they walk in, where you hold it, how you keep it hot, all those kind of things become more operational at that point.
It sounds like you're always 1 step, 2 steps, maybe 50 steps ahead of your peers and people that you were close to, which to me alludes to the bigger picture being that you've always been more focused on long-term strategy than short-term strategy, which also means that you've invested more money upfront to be successful in the long run. How do you weigh the risks at the onset of that decision, and how do you measure your ROI?
I feel that being dyslexic in a lot of ways makes you able to kind of see patterns of what's working out in the world a little bit. And, you go, well, I'm not going to be left behind, so I'm going to stay ahead. I was never scared to invest time. Mostly this was time. A lot of this thing wasn't financially. It was time involved to do it. From caterees, it was the time to program it. You really had to buckle down and do it. From Facebook, so it was just jumping in and understanding how it worked and other people reacted to it. POS system was programming it and putting it in place and not being worried if people thought you were not what they wanted you to be.
Right.
And judging ROI, now I've taken some wrong turns too. I've implemented some programs or some things that weren't what they promised to be and usually that happened by not researching enough, by not really looking at it and seeing what it could do and having a good understanding. It was more like checking it off my list. And, or some of it I took on and it wasn't working, but I knew it would work in the long run. And that's kind of where I'm getting to the third-party platforms. We knew that this was taking a big bite out of the market. And I'm going to allude to some things in a minute about, I go to a lot of seminars. My partners go to a lot of seminars. And we were hearing that the market was by 2025, 65% of all food orders were going to be delivery. Well, that got accelerated a little bit.
Sure.
But we knew that was a big part. But the problem is they charge you, 30%, 25, 30% to do it. So, and they tell you right off the bat, you can't raise your pricing. So we did that, and that just took this huge chunk out of our bottom line. And at the time we implemented it, we were doing from 10% to 30% delivery. So you can just imagine that 25, 30% amount that you're paying takes this chunk out of the bottom line on something that wasn't in our metrics on how we were making money. Sure. So we had to adjust that by raising the pricing. So we raised the pricing in there. We had done that this past year, and that changed a lot. But also one of the problems with third-party delivery is that if you're using 4 different platforms, they give you an iPad, order pops up on the iPad, and then you punch it into your POS. And that takes a ton of time. We basically had to have someone dedicated to do that on the weekends. But at another seminar that my partner went to, he was introduced to a company called Your Fare, which brings all those platforms to one iPad. And then what they were able to do was link that into our POS. So now we use 4 delivery platforms that go directly to our POS. So we don't have to mess with punching anything in. Those iPads don't mean anything for us unless we're 86ing something, and we're not missing a beat. So our online platform goes directly in our POS. Our our third party, all 4 third parties go directly into our POS, which is a screen in the kitchen where the orders just pop up. When they finish the order, they push the button, it goes to the expediter. When the expediter gets the food, they clear the button, or it goes on a screen now that tells people when their food is ready, and then we hand it out to the customer. Those last components were kind of just came together in the last 6 months.
Right.
So,
Just
and the screen, order ready screen is something we just put up in the last month. So I don't know where I was at the beginning of this, but these platforms and making them better, and delivery wasn't great at the beginning. Delivery platforms, and Haley, this is to your point. It was costing us money to do something, but we knew it was a direction, and we knew we had to kind of fight through these hiccups and these costs to our bottom line. And our franchisees were getting really nervous. They're like, we don't want to do delivery anymore because we're paying this huge amount of money. We're making less money now that we're doing delivery. The promise of delivery was that it wasn't going to cannibalize your existing customers. It was going to bring in more new customers. And that didn't really work so much for us in the breakfast mode, because we were the only, we didn't get really any new customers from it. We just cannibalized the customers that we'd already had. But we fought through it, and now it's pretty productive for us in a lot of ways. So that's the third-party platform part. Just did that last year. We started doing Google Ads at the end of last year too, which we've never played with at all. Really direct marketing to people that are around the stores that we already have open. And then things that we're working on right now is AI phone ordering. So that should be implemented in the next year. And the way that works is people call the store, place an order. It's AI that sounds like a person that you can talk to and communicate with and place your order there. It could take 10,000 orders at one time if you wanted to. But then those orders go directly into our online platform, and those feed to our POS so we don't miss a beat. Right now we're answering the phone, but this is going to really change how orders come in. Now there's a problem, hey, that we're navigating now in this, is that you can't regulate how all these different systems come into your platform. So on Mother's Day and Father's Day, we're really overwhelmed keeping them open. We have, all right, at 9 o'clock, you have to have 55 orders ready. At 9 o'clock, at 9:15, another 50 orders. So we were just swamped, and it was kind of a cluster. So next time we know, we'll turn off some of these platforms on days that we know will be a little bit crazy. Things that we're looking into right now that are kind of on the horizon, we'll be using influencers in our social media stuff. Yeah, so that's a part of it. So right now there's some great apps. There's one called Flipper Slash, which is basically connects brands with influencers. So you can put up, okay, we want to run this ad, put it out, and different influencers will say, okay, I'll do that for $20. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to take this many people. So you can set a budget, pick these influencers in different areas to start talking about your brand. And the reason that's so important now is traditional media is not that important anymore. Marketing is not as important. People want to hear it from somebody that they trust. Yeah. Myself, I could, Tim Ferriss is someone I listen to a lot, who's a huge influencer. Joe Rogan also is somebody too that now that I do. And we all have them, people that we listen to and hear. Now, that's not the type of influencers we'll be paying, but you also have these lower level local people who you listen to. And then you also want your brand ambassadors, people who already believe in what you do, to be talking about your brand as well. So this is where the influencers becomes important. We'll also start moving into YouTube ads here pretty soon. I think we're getting enough volume in what we're doing to justify that. And then looking into the future, AI is really big in the future, robotics. And I don't know if you guys heard, but KFC is going to be doing 3D printed food, which sounds kind of gross at this point. 3D printed food, yeah, in the fall. This is something that I've been paying attention to, but I thought was 5 years away. Wow. What they're doing is taking the genes out of chicken and making chicken in the lab. And what they're doing is printing it into nuggets, and they're going to be selling that in their store.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
It's way crazy what's going to happen in food. And this isn't so much, this is because the demand of food gets really big. And what's going to happen is that we can't produce the amount of food that we need to for the world. So that's why we're being pushed towards into a vegetarian way now. And a lot of people are incorporating that. and we're being told that this is the direction and what we should eat, and because of supply and demand. So when you start seeing these products being produced out of nothing, it also has to do with, a new Green Deal and emissions from animals, and
Yeah.
feeding animals becomes more and more important in the future. So although it seems weird to us now, in the future it will seem relatively common. So you have to kind of watch. And this
Well,
is
man, I'm so excited to have this episode recorded so that we can say on July 29th of 2020, here's some I told you so's.
right.
Because again, you have been, it's almost like you're not even quite ahead. It's that you're actually paying attention, right?
Yeah.
To the real
And-
situation and being honest with what's actually going on. And that's what makes you so innovative. I want to hear a little bit as a leader, right? Because you said you're leading your franchises, you're leading these people, and it doesn't quite make sense to them yet. How do you keep your mental and emotional fortitude when you just know that people aren't going to quite get it yet behind you, and you just kind of got to, because of course it positions you in your business and people call you crazy for a bit and then they call you a genius or a savant later. But in the moment, in those dark times when you're leading way ahead of what everybody else is comfortable with, how do you maintain that fortitude?
Well, I kind of tell you how I do stuff. So whenever I'm thinking of something new I'm going to implement, or a new business I'm going to do or whatever, I throw it out there to a lot of people and I watch their reaction right off the bat. So I remember when I was doing Only Burger, and they're like, what, a food truck? You're getting a food truck? The only food trucks in the area were the Mexican trucks that were around. And people looked at me like I was crazy. When I'm driving back from New Jersey, sitting in the back of that food truck with my partner, and feels like everybody's things falling off the walls, I did second guess myself.
Sure.
When I get Rise and I was putting this business in South Durham instead of where all the cool kids were downtown, people thought I was crazy and stupid for doing that. And they didn't understand biscuits and donuts and didn't grasp it. But
Right.
what I would do is throw it out to a lot of people and judge their reaction. So I'm not, I'm sensitive too, so people can hurt my feelings, but I don't worry about that so much when I'm thinking about what I'm doing, because I want to take the pulse of everybody else in there. Now I take the pulse of my partners and I talk about different things and we talk it through and we watch and we read a ton. There's 3 things that you have to do if you want to get ahead in what you're doing. They're super important. And I learned this at a Tony Robbins event. You have to have mentors. And you have to find your mentors, the people who've been there, who know what to do, can give you advice based on the past.
Yeah.
And the history of the business. You have to read. You have to read in a book on your subject of what you're doing, or articles that you see. You need to stay in trend and know what's going on in the community. And you need to go to seminars, and now online seminars. I mean, I'm doing one next week that's on delivery, and it was one we were supposed to go to in Vegas, but they canceled it. Now they're doing it online, but it's about delivery and the future of delivery. And if you do those things, that's more important to my business than going to the Culinary Institute of America was. And it's definitely what keeps on trend going forward.
Sure. Unreal. So I want to hear a little bit more about the future of AI as we're heading into that, because I know that's something you've studied deeply, and that is a big, it's not even on the horizon, it's here.
Yeah.
I've been realizing that me at my little coffee shop here in Durham, I'm already connected to AI in a lot of ways, because we're taking online ordering and we're doing that type of stuff, which I actually have to say, I forgot about this story when we sat down before coronavirus, and you're like, bro, you got to get your online ordering stuff figured out. Like this is coming and whatever. And there was no pandemic, obviously, but we were sitting down in the Durham hotel having a coffee together. And I was, you were mentoring me on my business, and you're like, this is the next thing. So, and then all of a sudden a month later, and I had been in the works of putting it together, and a month later, 2 months, I forget what it was, coronavirus hits, and I'm ready to press play on this online ordering thing. It was so nuts. And so thank you for that. But just as a testimony to, you actually live this.
Right.
Okay. So yeah. So AI, what's,
Yeah.
and if
Well, this is a great example of people looking at me like I'm crazy right now. So I'm like preaching, look, AI is accelerating. Everything in technology is accelerating. And it's piqued my interest mostly by watching some podcasts and seeing the the people's eyes that are actually developing AI, and then you can tell they feel like they're relatively close. And AI learning, self-learning. I think the brew was when AI beat Go, the Go champion, which is I think it's a Japanese game, a Chinese game, that complicated, and they created a machine that beat the world champion in it, and everybody was surprised.
Wow.
So how AI self-learning does is that they basically at this point put it out there and let it learn something and get that information and teaching itself from the very basics, and then it accelerates. Multiple guys out there learning together and sharing the information of what they learn. It's what Tesla's doing it to an extent with their self-driving cars. They're doing it with cameras, so everything that's learned is then shared with everything else that's learning. So it accelerates that learning curve very, very fast until it overtakes what the best person or the smartest person in the world at doing a certain task. But it's limited at this point. It's limited to certain tasks. So the machine that beat Go can't beat a machine at checkers because it doesn't understand checkers.
Right.
So it's very defined into a certain thing. So what I see that meaning to my business is, my problem right now that I have is we take orders in from online orders, we take orders from the kiosks in the stores, we take orders from third-party delivery, and nothing regulates it. But we have the information in our POS that says how fast we're putting orders out. So eventually, when the AI gets involved in that learning, it's going to learn, okay, they can't take this order now from third party. It's going to take them an hour to put out, so it won't do it, or it will set a time for later. And then it will learn how fast we're moving in the kitchen and start working with these other platforms to kind of regulate how fast food comes in or orders come in, to how fast we put it out. That's a really basic example of how AI may affect my company, and something that I'm really looking forward to that being a part of it. There's another part of AI that, from a cultural part, and what I see it, because I really do care about the people who work for me, is that all that's really happened from technology and what's going to happen from AI is there's been a promise by the people who develop it that this is going to make you more money, less time doing your job, and you'll make more money. Well, they pulled all the profits to the top, right? So that's why today in Congress, you got all these tech executives that are going to be grilled today from Facebook and Google and Apple and Amazon. Because what they've done is they pulled that profit to the top, and that profit has not been shared with the companies who then can share it with their employees.
Sure.
So what it's done is made the business more expensive to do, more expensive for us to do, but we're relying on this technology to keep up with everybody around us. So yeah, I was 6 months ahead and I figured out that I need to charge more for delivery platforms. But when the virus hit, all these people had to jump into the delivery, and then they realized, shit, they're taking all the money from me at this point, and now they're having to say, can I survive in this new world of how stuff works, right?
Wow.
So the promise of AI has not filtered down, or technology hasn't filtered down to save us more money in the future. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit on that. But
no, that's great, man. That's great.
With AI does have some promising things that can help us in the future, but how that, okay, I know where it was, how it affects your employees. Because if you're an employee working for me, and back in the day when we started Rise, we had 12 employees working in the kitchen on the weekends. And then you had this labor crunch where you couldn't get that many people to work, and we cut it back. And now you see, we got rid of the cashiers, and we got rid of some other positions in our kitchen. So if you work for me, there's a little bit of wariness towards job security or job insecurity. And they said, well, next thing he's going to get is a robot to make the biscuits, or they're going to get this to do this. And I think that those conversations have to be had. And then, so I redid my cultural manifesto for my company a few weeks ago, and we implemented relationships a little bit different than where they were. Because when I was coming up as a cook, the only relationships were employee, owner, manager. Now those are a little bit more complex. their manager employee and their manager technology and their technology to employee. And if your employees don't embrace the technology, if it's just a pain in their ass because all these words come at the same time and you aren't talking about it as if that's just as critical of a position as a person is, then you're going to be way behind and you're going to have a lot of animosity towards this technology.
Sure.
So I'm taking the first steps to open this conversation. And there's some other people in the world that are doing it too. I think that Lex Friedman has a podcast I told you about before. And what his dream is to help kind of like a human resources between technology or AI and humans. Because, you know, if you believe that AI is going to take us to AI is not going to have a need for us and going to kill us off at some point. Or the other extreme is that AI is going to build this utopia world that figures out our environmental problems, our political problems, our scarcity of resources, and really fix everything to this world where we have more time for leisure. That's the other extreme.
Sure.
I tend to go with that extreme. I tend to be very hopeful for what technology can bring us. And the problem that will come with that leisure time is, what do we do with that leisure time? You know, if you have a business and you're so in it, and that's how you identify yourself, as if how I identified myself for a long time was through what I did for a living. What are you going to fill that with? And that's why hobbies are really important to me. That's one aspect. Giving to your community, mentoring, just helping other people. These are going to be ways that we fill that time to find our self-worth that we've traditionally been filling with our business.
Sure.
Or at least people who are driven towards the business.
And what a perfect segue, because now we're talking about mentoring. Let's bring in Jay and Queen Precious Jewel. Are y'all ready? Let's see. We're going to unmute them. So again, we're experimenting with a format here.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we got Dave back.
Okay.
There we go. He was gone for a minute, but thanks, you know, Haley and I were able to carry it, and Tom is just a gracious guest, so thank you so much. So I want to hear, before we get into kind of more of the mentoring and asking questions of Tom, Jay and Queen Precious Jewel, would you catch us up on your journey and what you're up to with Indulge Catering?
You want from the beginning?
From the beginning.
Or
Yeah, give me like a speedy version, just for context for people who don't know about your work.
oh yeah, people might not know about
Hush
us.
yourself, hush yourself.
Well,
So,
that won't be a problem at all. But for now, we need to catch these people up. You know.
awesome. Well, I am Queen Precious. This
I'm
is
Jay
Jay White.
We're
This
owners of Indulge Catering
LLC. And LLC is important because there's an Indulge Catering in Canada. So we always say Indulge Catering LLC. We're not only an LLC, but it's in our name. We have been in business for 6 years. And what you call it?
We are corporate and full service event caterers.
So-
We also do festivals, but we specialize in large parties.
Yes.
Events over 100 guests.
Is pre-COVID,
and
that's what we did. We specialized in, if you had a festival, we've done Moog Fest for 2 years where they hired us to feed artists and staff. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner for where we outfitted self-help building. We've done Art of Cool Festival. We're also traveling chefs. So we're traveling personal chefs where we'll do destination weddings. We'll do personal chefs in your home. All of that was beautiful and on the rise. We are married. So we have that lovely dynamic of being a married couple that work together. What happened now?
We still like each other.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
love each other, like each other.
Running business together. Right? That's important.
That's important.
Yes,
That's
communication.
important. And everybody can't say that, right? That's everybody can't say that. Yes. But oh my gosh. So yes, that's us in a nutshell. Of course, I could say more, but I think you get the gist,
Of
right?
what we do.
You're Durham based. Love to the Bull City.
Full
All
city.
right. Yeah.
She's from Durham, but I'm from the Bronx.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Well, you made a good choice. So how have you pivoted in your business right now in the COVID era?
Yes.
there was two things come through. So do you want me to answer that? Or
Yeah.
something? I don't know what's Okay.
Yeah.
So how we pivoted. So first we cried, or I cried. I cried for about a month or two on my couch, and then realized that this is my dream and I have to fight for it. And so I woke up, started listening to the webinars and the Zooms and understanding, truly filtering actually the information about EDILs and PPPs and all the alphabet soup that people were throwing around. Some people not really understanding it for themselves. So I kind of had to take and say, what does Indulge Catering LLC need from all of that? Talk to some subject matter experts. We talked to accountants. We talked to tax people. We talked to small business administration. We talked to the people who actually could answer, how does this work for a mobile caterer that's not a restaurant, doesn't have a brick and mortar, it's not a food truck, and I do have employees that I W-2, that we pay on W-2. So what does that mean for me? And once we got those questions answered, it opened up just the brain waves of everything. We also have a business coach that kept us on track as far as saying, stay your course. We plotted for this, stay your course. And also a lot of people, some people don't know, is that we had a meal prep service that we did at the same time as Indulge Catering. And so we, looking at our business in the beginning,
first three years.
So it prepped us for how to properly do a delivery service, understand customers' need, how to market to customers a little bit better, so it didn't hurt us bad when they said, oh, you need to do delivery and packaging and bags. And
well, that was our first pivot, because we've been in business 6 years now. So we did titanium fitness meals for the first 3 years. It stopped making money.
Correct.
So you have to be smart and say, okay, let me stop that and direct my attention to the next move, the next product. So we had stopped it a couple years ago or whatever. But we had already gained that muscle, Justin. You know, we already gained that muscle. We had already had the systems in place and all of that. So it was simple to pivot to what we do now, which is Indulge at Home. Indulge at Home is where we provide family meals to families. We will deliver it right to your front door.
Or you can pick it up contactless,
or you can pick it up. Yep, contact.
Oh, are these cooked or uncooked?
They're cooked, fully cooked.
Fully cooked. All you have to do is
heat
warm
and
it
eat.
up.
That's it.
Yes, so that's what we pivoted to. But it also, COVID has allowed us to take time that we would not have if the world was normal or whatever, right? Because we are busy all throughout the year up until November, right? So we are pushing, working. But it allowed us to sit down and think about projects that we had already started on or
was on our dream board.
Yes, on our dream board.
So we had some stuff on the business dream board
for 2020.
Yeah, for 2020. It said in 2020 we're going to launch this and we're going to launch that. And then 2020 came and said you're launching it now. And instead of waiting and thinking about it, said you're home, you might as well launch it. Like our seasoning line. So we've been selling almost a year. September makes 1 year since we started our seasoning line. We launched it first in California when we were at a private event there. And it had great reception, but when we came back to Durham, we were too busy to do anything more with it. COVID has helped us say, okay, well, now you're not busy. So, and a grant, yeah, it's like, you're not busy. Push it. So we got a grant from I Fund Women of Color and Caress, which helped us start our crowdfunding to move our second spices coming out August 1st. And then we're doing 3 different barbecue sauces, which we're looking to put on market. So meaning that to get into the stores. So, to wholesale and do international shipping on.
So we understood that our used to be, we're not going back to that. It's not possible. What we used to do,
100 people, 2,000 people is not happening.
So we had to look at it and say, what will the world look like in 2021? We said virtual way. And nobody is going to be sitting in front of each other, breathing the same air, eating the same food. So catering will look different.
Yeah.
So we have to do the virtual. We have to go ahead and push our seasonings, our sauces, go ahead and make those moves so we can get it in the stores, because people are still shopping. They're still shopping, they're still spending money.
And they're still eating.
They're still eating. So, so yes, that's what we're doing, Justin.
Dave, are you there?
So I am. I've given up on the internet and I'm just on my phone now. So
Okay.
yeah. So I was hoping the whole thing would fall apart without me, but apparently you guys are doing really, really well, which is kind of my ego here.
We did miss
So
you.
Tom,
the same, but we held it.
no, yeah, I'm sure it did. So Tom, I want to know. I mean, of what they talked about here, maps yours. I want to know first of all what you're hearing in terms of that aligns with principles you're talking about, and also what question you might want to throw.
You're breaking up a little bit on me.
Yeah.
but
So I think what you're hearing from what they said, and any pieces of advice that you might offer.
Well, no, the biggest advice I've offered over the last 5 months is keep fighting, which you're doing. You know, you have to pivot to the market. I've been in the business for 20 years as an owner, and you're always pivoting. This is just the biggest thing that's happened. But during this time, we've had, 9/11 during my time, and we had the financial collapse in 2009, and we have this. About every 10 years, you get something. But so you're doing the right thing by pivoting. I don't know where you are as far as with e-commerce and getting your product out there. A big thing for us, especially with catering, I agree with you, it's going to be a while before big groups come together, but you'll have more smaller groups that will be doing what you're doing, right? And so how do you, the amount of time you invest in a party 100 makes sense because it's for 100 people. But if you had to invest that same amount of time in groups of 10 times, that's going to eat all your time, it's going to eat your resources, and it's hard to make money.
Sure.
So I think making the things as efficient as you can in what you're doing. I don't know what systems you're using for billing or doing estimates, but you probably heard me talk about Cater Easy earlier. I think It's a great program. It takes a while to really get in it and learn, but once you have it set up, it's life-changing for you.
Okay.
You can give time back to, like, if you did want to take on smaller parties or things like that. That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, that stuff will come back to extent at one point, but you're right not to be counting on that. Basically, don't count. It's gravy on your biscuit if it comes back, right?
Yeah.
That's stuff. Can I share the screen for a second, Justin?
Yeah, please do.
Are you pass that over?
No, I think I need to do some here. Yeah, I got you. So while you're getting that up, I do want to hear from you two. What would you say right now is your biggest challenge? If there was something that we could kind of work through together in the next 10 minutes, what's the next barrier for you two?
Well, we have started to open back up based upon the guidelines as far as doing different things. So today we had 10-person, and then we had actually 3 deliveries today, which was really dope. So it was 10 people.
You're in your car.
Yes, This is why we're in our car.
No, this is a real entrepreneur. Pay attention. These are real entrepreneurs over here making deliveries in their car, hopping on a Zoom call, so that so that they can get on the Enlightrepreneurs podcast. Y'all are the real deal.
Great things. But I think the biggest part right now is to really, we use 17 hats as far as our back of house. We use, we've heard of cateries, and I agree with Tom. It took a lot of stuff for me to try to understand it. I didn't have time. Now I do have time to look at it. So it's great to hear his endorsement of that.
Yes.
We also use GoDaddy. So that is our e-commerce platform. So we've sold a lot of stuff via food, our Indulge at Home, as well as our spices, all throughout our website. We have a Shop Indulge store where you can purchase that, the Discern.
Indulge-catering.com.
Sorry. Yes, the website. And
but
so
our
challenge right now is really getting the word out about Indulge at Home and moving that into more of a lucrative venture as far as people actually ordering, people pressing the buy button.
Yes.
We have over 3,000 to 4,000 views to our website each month. So it's not like people are not on the site. It's now, how do you take that traffic to your site and move it to a push the buy button? That's our challenge right now.
Well, what's amazing that they have now in e-commerce is, let's say you ran a Google ad and you were going over a certain market, you're looking for a certain demographic, and you spend a certain amount of money. It will be able to tell you how many people saw your ad, how many people clicked on your ad, and then how many people went to your site and bought something. So you would get an ROI on how much money you spent and how many customers that brought back to you. And then you can adjust that based on, okay, we know for this demographic, we got this much ROI. We know for this one, we got this much. So you can kind of fine tune it and really find the market that's going to work the best for you. The tools that they have on Google now, I don't do it. My marketing company does it for me, right? But these tools are really built for the individual owners. So if you go in and start working with them on yourself, I think that would be time well spent really understanding how the Google marketplace works and the e-commerce part of it works.
Okay.
Because I think, you have this amount of people looking at your site each month. That's impressive. That's a lot, right? Now, how many people are, how many times, for me, how many times am I going to my website to see what's up there, right? That counts too. And then how many people are the ones who are actually shopping, who've never heard of you before or heard from somebody else? What are the reasons for coming? And they can tell what buttons they click on your website too. That information you probably already have by the company who's hosting your website. You can get that information too. To see
and just from a marketing standpoint too, Tom, I just loved how you were talking about the different places that you can spend money moving forward where it's currently underpriced. That's all we're talking about, is finding the underpriced marketing. So influencers is currently still an underpriced piece of marketing, and it's not the big influencers. It's the small people with a decent amount of following, that you can actually pay a little bit. So that I think is right. Running YouTube ads to people in that area who have clicked, like YouTube has really gone to the next level on that, and and it's still underpriced. And so you mentioned a few of those, but from a marketing standpoint, you got to play the long game. This would be my piece of advice, which is that it is like, trust, buy, right? Like, trust, buy. That's the marketing game, if you want to call it. But ultimately, they're saying, 7 touch points or so before someone actually clicks a buy button.
Okay.
Because they've seen you, and then they saw this post, and then they've heard from you here, and then whatever, and then they visited your website. But now I'm visiting your website not just to check it out. I'm ready to take action. So it might not be the first time that they're to your site. Actually, likely won't be the first time that they're on your site that they're buying. They want to get to know you and build a relationship with you, which, Tom, you've been ahead of the game on that, on the Facebook thing. You were building a relationship involving people in your menu and all those different types of things. It's, they want to like you, right? Then they trust you, then they buy from you. And that's a bit of that cycle.
And the one thing I would say there is really market who you are. Because whenever I got off and went in trying to be something that I wasn't, or market myself as something I wasn't, that authenticity left. And I think that authenticity in who you ladies are is probably your best selling point, Okay. So I would just say that probably was my worst mistake in my life with business, was losing track of who I am and not giving the respect to who I am, is what my product is, and my authenticity, and my being genuine as a business owner.
Yeah, I'd like to add something too here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So one thing too is you have touched thousands of people through your large gatherings who don't, who necessarily know it's you that they touch them.
Hey, Dave, it's pretty hard to hear you.
Let me try one more time, and then I'll give up.
I'll put your question forward to.
Is this any better or not?
Yeah.
Does this improve? All right, never mind. I mean, I'll say it out. If it comes out fine, it doesn't, that's fine too. What I was saying is that you have all these people that you've touched, through the large gatherings, and if there's some way that the people that your customers who had contact with those people can get the word out for you. That's what I'm saying. There's a big market you don't have direct access to, but you have access to the people that have access to the people who've already eaten your food.
Right.
Yes, you know what? That's a good question I have. Thank you. I'm going to ask Tom that, because we find that when we cater these large events, let's say Duke, for instance, we cater a lot of their departments celebrations, right? So it'll be 125 people in the room, but we only have contact with the person that hired us. So the person that hired us is getting all of our emails. They also get
the business cards.
They also get the final survey. Once we finish your event, we send that one contact our survey saying, how do we do, da, da, da. But we don't technically reach the 125 people that just ate our food. What suggestion do you have for those times? How can we?
Right. I understand what you're saying. First thing is, I don't know what they're doing with the virus going on, but Duke has an event council, and they do these luncheons like 10 times a year, where everybody at Duke who books events goes to, and you can volunteer to provide food for one of those, and then you'll get spread out to all the people who spend the money at Duke, and you'll get to meet them with your product face to face. So that's a great place to start. But after that, it becomes if you talk to the person at Duke who will let you lay out your business cards, you need to have information available. Like for me, when I was doing big parties, I gave cards to all my wait staff, because a lot of people will ask, hey, who did the food? Bam, give them a card right away. They put it in their pocket, right? So a way that you're just getting it to them. Some people don't want you putting out cards, but ask them first. But that's really all you can really do, is have that information to give to them when they're there. I can't tell you how many cards I gave out at weddings during the time when I would go out and actually kind of stand by the buffet a little bit, or at the end of it, make myself a little bit more present for someone to say, man, this is great. You got a card.
Yes.
I think that's the best way too. Anything else a little bit intrusive.
Okay. So we're doing that.
So
we have a
just
flyer, informational flyer, business cards.
I actually don't hear you guys saying, I don't see any missing holes. I think the only things is really embrace what e-commerce that's out there, and the easiest platform and most proven one right now is the Google's e-commerce platform, which is getting more AI into it, to where they'll know who's coming to you and buying. So they will start directly going to those people and those demographics that are ordering from you already, and just building on that. So almost AI is really good for you as far as e-commerce goes.
I did see here when you was like, when you was telling us to read the articles, do the seminars. So where should we tap into as far as the podcast that we should start to subscribe to, or the articles that we should start to subscribe to, that we can now really be tapped into, even as this delivery one that you're about to go to virtually, even something as that we know what's coming down the pipeline as far as.
But also though, a lot of this stuff, Tom, is directed towards restaurant owners.
Yes.
A lot of the information that comes out is restaurant owners.
Well, and there's a lot of crossover. And when I was in catering at one point, I was the vice president of the local NACE chapter, National Association of Catering Events. So that's a resource that I don't know if you've tapped into. It's more, the stuff that I talked about is a little more geeky, and this AI and really looking ahead. The stuff that you probably should tap into are trade publications, and most of those are done online right now. So just do a search for catering trade publications. Like I'm probably getting emails from about 10 different sources, a week, multiple times a week, talking about everything about the state of the industry, to how to renegotiate your rent, to how to build a catering program in your company, or all these different things are put there in the forefront. I think that in catering, I would start with NACE, and then in NACE, you'll probably be introduced to other things. that will come in and we'll be telling you, and you'll say, all right, that's our market right there. That's what we want to get into. I'd also look into, e-commerce stuff, because especially selling barbecue sauce in your seasoning, you really want to understand that market even more if you're going to get it to take off, right?
Okay.
Those are the things, and they'll send you emails, and you'll get a lot. Some of them you'll be like, I don't want to get that one anymore. But you'll get a nice little nugget out of something. And you go, oh, I'm going to read everything they ever send me, because I just made a lot of money right there. At least that's the way I am.
Okay. I like that. Thank you.
Well, and that it's really keeping your finger on the pulse, right? That's whatever you can do to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. I think, Tom, that's been the secret to your success, is that you really care about making sure your finger's on the pulse and you understand what's going on. That's what's kept you ahead. And then trusting your instincts, what you're doing. Trust your instincts that once you have your finger on the pulse, act on it, and don't wait until, I was just reading something the other day about how we devalue our instincts. And it was that anytime we say, oh, I totally saw that coming, or, oh, I knew that was going to happen, or whatever, and we hadn't acted on it, then we're actually telling our instincts to shut up, right? Because we're saying, like, I saw it coming and I didn't do anything. And now look, it's here. Anytime we get to that moment, we've actually just told our instincts, like, nah, I'll kind of thank you later, but I'm not actually going to listen to you ahead of time and actually do the thing. So to strengthen that muscle, keep acting on it, right? Like, get your barbecue sauces out there. Keep moving the pieces forward that as you get your finger on the pulse, that that's what the next step is. So,
intuition, you're right. Intuition.
Go ahead, Tom.
You're right. Intuition is the most important tool at your disposal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What you want to do.
Can I, Justin, am I legible or audible?
Yeah.
Or not?
Ish.
Okay, I want to add one thing too, just to all of you that you have in common, because we talked about artificial intelligence, but it really is the human heart intelligence for the three of you that have made you all successful. And I don't want to downplay that. You all care deeply about.
Thank you.
And I just want to acknowledge
You're
that
right.
and point that out. Yeah, it's true for our people, and it's certainly true for you three. And it's really been for whatever extent my internet will let me in, it's really been a joy to listen to.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you three so much for hopping on and being willing to experiment with this format. Tom, thanks for sharing your heart. Jay, Queen Precious Jewel, love you two so much, and so thankful for what you're doing. Haley, land the plane, bring us home. How do people stay connected?
Can we just say one thing? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, please do.
We would love for the support of those listening for our I Fund Women of Color and Caress campaign. It's called Elevate Your Palate. We are seeking to raise right now our seed funds of $50,000 to really help us bring this to market. We have our UPC code. We have
almost everything.
Almost everything.
We need your help.
We need your help
to get us the rest
We
of the
also
way.
have some great rewards that we, with your different levels of fundraising that we are doing, including one that if you donate $10,000 to us, we are providing you with a weekend of indulgence where you have your personal chef, us, for a complete weekend for you and 3 of your other friends. So we provide the destination, and we provide the room and board, and you just have to get there, but we provide everything else.
How can they find it?
They can find it on our website, indulge-catering.com. Also, you can find it on a link, and we also invite you to join us in our kitchen every Sunday, 6 p.m. on Facebook Live. It's called Cooking at Home with Queen and Jay. So we invite y'all to do that as well. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew how to find us.
Oh, thank you. That's a really good point. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure we post this in the Enlightrepreneurs group as well.
Awesome.
Links. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank
And Tom,
you.
anything that you want to say here? Any ways that people can find you, or things that you're working on right now that you want to highlight?
First, eat more biscuits. So you got to Rise Southern Biscuits and Righteous Chicken, and really a lot of my side project energy is towards finding a hobby. So find a hobby, find your happy. It's more important than you may think to do something outside of your business.
That's awesome. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Haley, land the plane.
Queen, Jay, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. all the information that you could possibly want or need to find will live in our Facebook page. So please don't be afraid to comment or post if you have any questions, or just reach out to Justin, Dave, or I individually. Yeah, come join us next week.
That's beautiful. And if you want more of this stuff, join us tomorrow in the Commonwealth. We go a lot deeper with our members, a lot of accountability pieces. I know, Tom, you've hopped in a couple of those sessions, and you're going to be joining us tomorrow to go into some of that. That's a private membership-based community. So if you want any information, just reach out to us so that we can make sure you're a fit for it. But it's been, just been an incredible time. So thank you all. Love you all. Keep changing the world, y'all.
Love y'all. Thank you.